Hi everyone, it's John. Welcome back to my channel. I wanted to do a quick Friday Reads video for May 19th, 2023, and just show you what I thought it had only been 2 or 3 months since I made the last Friday Reads video. As it turns out, I haven't made one since November. Tempus fugit, right? But I have 3 books here that one of which I finished, one I'm in the middle of, and another one I'm probably going to be starting sometime this weekend. And just wanted to talk about them probably in that order. I showed in passing this book in my last video. I finished this last week. It's called Irrationality, A History of the Dark Side of Reason by Justin E.H. Smith. It is from Princeton University Press, and it is basically a book of looks at reason and its opposite, I guess, if you want to call it irrationality. The book opens with sort of this wrestling with this contention that is the main idea in Horkheimer and Adorno's The Dialectic of Enlightenment, which is a really important piece of philosophy to come out of the 20th century. And in that book, Horkheimer and Adorno say that despite the fact that the sort of popular take on the Enlightenment is that it was dominated by reason, logic, empirical evidence, sort of reason embodied, right? That really inherently in the idea of the Enlightenment is fascism, and irreason, and inherent in it is this nugget that overturns the project of reason, that overturns Enlightenment itself. So it's an interesting idea. You may or may not agree with it, but it's something that sort of kicks off the book and then allows Smith to go and sort of dig up reasons or examples of irrationality in science. He even looks at logic. He starts out the introduction with the sort of fable. It's not exactly clear whether it's historical truth or not, but there was a philosopher who was an acolyte of Pythagoras in 5th century Greece. His name was Hippasus, and he was killed for having divulged some of the secrets of his Pythagorean cult. And it's sort of an interesting idea of there being this sort of knowledge that someone is willing to kill over or guard so fervently that they're willing to die or die for it. It's just kind of an inspection of those ideas. Like I said in the last video, I thought it was, I'll go into more detail during the review, I thought it was a bit disjointed. It touches on too many things for the space that it takes up. It is only 290 or so pages, but it touches on too many things to really make a cogent point about any one of them. And that's its biggest weakness. I'll talk more about this in the next few weeks when I post a review, but that is my set of thoughts in a nutshell. So, next, the book I'm still in the middle of. This is George de Moyer's novel Trilby. If you recognize the name de Maurier, you probably should. He is the paternal grandfather of Daphne du Maurier, the author of Jamaica Inn and Rebecca and a handful of other novels. Daphne comes from a pretty illustrious family. Her father was a sort of a theater tycoon and a theater impresario, And his father, her paternal grandfather, was George de Moyer, who was a pretty well-known 19th century cartoonist, as well as producing a couple of well-known novels. This is by far the best known. And the thing Trilby is really well known for, besides being written by Daphne du Maurier's grandfather, is the fact that it introduces us to a kind of stock character, an eponymous character by the name of Svengali. Svengali is a notoriously foreign, somewhat cosmopolitan musician artist type who exerts a magical, hypnotic aura of control over the titular character here of Trilby, who is a younger ingenue-like figure trying to make her way up in the world. And this book has, well, it has its own issues. It's Svengali, the character Svengali is Jewish, and it's pretty, it can be anti-Semitic in parts. It hasn't aged well in that respect at all. Also, the writing is pretty flowery in many places, and there are just large chunks of, kind of like in War and Peace, of completely untranslated French that aren't in footnotes, aren't in the back of the book anywhere. You just kind of have to read it on your own or go somewhere else to translate it if you don't know it. And because of the sort of purplish prose, the overwriting, the style, I mean, and please, as anyone who watches this channel knows, I'm not someone who needs an action-packed book. One of my favorite books of all time is Middlemarch, far from what you would call a thriller, a page-turner. I really loved it. I don't need something that has a lot of action going, but this is very, very slow moving. I'm only about 120 pages through it, and it's basically just a bunch of strung together set pieces introducing a series of characters. So we'll see how the second half goes, but it's not exactly being set up to be very promising. So there's that. And then something I have a lot more hope for. This is something I'm going to read for Historathon 2023. And it is on the tail end of quarter 2, which covers the years 500 to 1500. This is Christine de Pezones' The Book of the City of Ladies. It is sort of a classic to come out of the literature of the French late Renaissance. Christian de Pezon was a French writer working, well, at least this was written around the year 1405. She was one of, maybe the first, professional female writer in all of Europe. And it just so happens that she wrote this book, which is kind of an allegory. It is an allegory, in which she constructs a city, stones, bricks, all the buildings, out of women. Not in a literal sense, but what she does is looks at women, looks at their virtues, their strengths, their courage, their all kinds of women throughout history, and builds what she sort of thinks is a utopia or an ideal society out of a composite of those women. And it ends up being kind of a rebuttal to the common narrative about women when she's writing the early 15th century, that women are uneducable, that they're ignorant, that they need to be ruled by men. All the sort of misogynistic things that were relatively common to think about women back then. In large part, it's a response to the allegorical dream poem Roman de la Rose, which was written about 150 years before she wrote this book. Roman de la Rose was one of the fundamental texts in sort of setting up what people of her time thought about courtly love, thought about chivalry, and what all of those things entailed. And perhaps not surprisingly, a lot of it is quite misogynistic, like I said. But this is her defense of women, that women are intelligent. Women not only can be educated, but deserve educations. And it's just, sounds like it's going to be a really fascinating book, especially if you're interested in the history of the development of feminist thought. So if you think, just by chance, that feminism is only as old as, say, Mary Wollstonecraft Shelley, it actually goes back much further. And of course, it goes back to before Christine de Pizan, too. But I just wanted to read the opening paragraph of the book, which really sucked me in as a reader, and I think other readers will also enjoy it. This is the book is broken up into 3 parts, by the way. This is the very first paragraph of the first part. It's called Here Begins the Book of the City of Ladies, the first chapter of which explains why and for what purpose the book was written. One day I was sitting in my study surrounded by books of different kinds, for it has long been my habit to engage in the pursuit of knowledge. My mind had grown weary, as I had spent the day struggling with the weighty tomes of various authors whom I had been studying for some time. I looked up from my book and decided that for once I would put aside these difficult texts and find instead something amusing and easy to read from the works of the poets. As I searched around for some little book, I happened to chance upon a work which did not belong to me but was amongst a pile of others that had been placed in my safekeeping. I opened it up and saw that the title was by Matthiolus. With a smile, I made my choice. Although I had never read it, I knew that unlike many other works, this one was said to be written in praise of women. Yet I had scarcely begun to read it when my dear mother called me down to supper, for it was time to eat. I put the book to one side, resolving to go back to it the following day. And that's how she opens up her book. Like I said, for book lovers out there, that's kind of a paragraph that's probably going to draw you in. And from there, she builds her city. It's kind of a fascinating concept, and I'm looking forward to actually digging in to the meat of the book. But this is Christine de Pizan's The Book of the City of Ladies. Let me know what you're reading this Friday, this weekend, whenever, Historathon or not, and I will talk to you later.